What if I told you that the most important day of your life is not the day you were born, not the day you got married, not the day you achieved success, but the day you truly understood why you were alive? Most people never find that answer. They spend their whole lives chasing money, chasing approval, chasing a version of themselves that others will be proud of. And then one day it's over. But this story is about a man who found that answer. And he found it in the most impossible, most unexpected moment imaginable. He found it at his own funeral. Stay with us until the very end, because the last thing this man said will stay with you long after this video is over. In a small town surrounded by golden wheat fields and old stone roads, there lived a man named Daniel. Daniel was 58 years old. By every measure that the world uses to judge a life, he was successful. He owned a profitable business. He had a large house with tall windows that caught the morning light. His name was respected in the community. People nodded when he walked past. Some even bowed their heads slightly out of habit. But Daniel had not laughed, truly laughed, in 11 years. He had not cried either. He had simply existed. Every morning he woke up at 6 a.m., drank his coffee alone, drove to work, managed his employees with cold efficiency, came home, ate dinner in silence, went to sleep. His wife, Elena, had stopped trying to reach him years ago. Not because she stopped loving him, but because every time she tried to get close, Daniel would build another wall. His son, Thomas, had moved to another city. They spoke maybe twice a year. Always polite, always distant, always ending the same way. "Take care of yourself, Dad." And Daniel would say, "You too," and hang up, and sit in silence, and feel absolutely nothing. One cold Tuesday morning in November, Daniel was walking to his car when something happened. His left arm went numb. Then his chest tightened, like a hand was squeezing his heart from the inside. He grabbed the car door. His vision blurred. His knees buckled. And then darkness. When he opened his eyes, he was lying in a hospital bed. White ceiling, beeping machines, the smell of antiseptic in the air. A doctor stood beside him with a calm but serious face. "Mr. Daniel," the doctor said quietly, "you had a cardiac arrest, a severe one. You were technically without a heartbeat for 4 minutes. For minutes." Daniel stared at the ceiling. "You are stable now," the doctor continued, "but I need to be honest with you. Your heart is significantly weakened. You may have months, you may have a year, but I want you to use that time wisely." The doctor left, and Daniel lay there alone, completely alone. And for the first time in 11 years, he felt something. Fear. Raw, cold, shaking fear. Not of death, but of something far worse. He was afraid that he had already wasted the only life he was ever going to get. 3 days later, Daniel returned home. Elena was waiting at the door. Her eyes were red. She had clearly been crying for days. Daniel looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in years. And he said something that shocked her completely. "Elena, I want to organize my own funeral." She stepped back. "What? Daniel, you're not to die," he said softly. "To live. Please, just trust me one more time." She didn't understand, but she saw something different in his eyes, something she hadn't seen in a very long time. So she agreed. 2 weeks later, on a quiet Saturday afternoon, 43 people gathered in the town hall. They had received a simple handwritten invitation. "You are invited to the funeral of Daniel Mercer. Please come. Please speak honestly. I will be listening." And there, in the front row, sat Daniel himself. Alive, quiet, eyes open. The room was deeply uncomfortable at first. People whispered to each other. Some laughed nervously. Some looked confused or even angry. But then the first person stood up. It was Margaret, an elderly woman who had worked in Daniel's company for 22 years. She cleared her throat, and then she said something nobody expected. "Daniel fired me 3 years ago, without warning, without explanation. I was 61 years old and I had no savings. I spent 8 months unable to pay my rent." The room went silent. Margaret continued, "But I am here today because despite everything, I remember the Daniel from before. The one who used to bring us all hot soup on cold winter days. The one who stayed late to help me when my husband was sick. I don't know what happened to that man, but I hope he's still in there somewhere. She sat down. Daniel's jaw tightened. He did not look away. Then Thomas stood up. Daniel's son. He had driven 6 hours to be there. Thomas looked at his father for a long moment. And then his voice broke. Dad. I stopped calling because every time I did, I felt like I was talking to a stranger. And that hurt more than not talking at all. But I want you to know something. I never stopped needing my father. Thomas sat down. He was shaking. And Daniel, for the first time in 11 years, felt tears running down his face. He didn't wipe them away. He let them fall. When everyone had spoken, Daniel slowly stood up. The room held its breath. He looked around at every face, the ones who were angry, the ones who were sad, the ones who were confused. And then, he smiled. Not a polite smile. Not a business smile. A real one. The kind that reaches the eyes and stays there. And he said, I asked you all here today because I needed to hear the truth. And you gave it to me. Every painful word of it. I have spent the last 15 years building walls so high that not even sunlight could get through. I told myself it was strength. I told myself successful men don't need people. They don't cry. You don't. You have this moment. Right now. That is enough to begin. If the story moved something inside you, share it with one person who needs to hear it today. And if you want stories that don't just pass the time, but actually change the way you see your life, subscribe to this channel. We will see you in the next story. Until then, show up. For the people who need you. And for yourself.